Story 1. I'd say learning to walk again. It's not anywhere near as easy as it may seem. Your mind says, I got this, I know how to do it. Those first few steps are when you realize that this is going to take time. Baby steps again. Story 2. How much loneliness can change a person. I'm completely normal at work talking all day, and then once I leave, I don't have a reason to open my mouth until I'm back at work, making up what I did on my weekend. Story 3. What it's like to be a first responder at an accident site. My teacher emphasized that no matter what, we could not be trained in what it would be like, because people react vastly differently once they are in the situation. Some people go completely catatonic. Some people break down and weep. Some people spring into action and cause problems because they don't think. Some people faint. You will not know till you stand there. The first time I used my training was to keep pressure on a guy who had his hand mangled in a machine. I could see the tendons and fat layers. The main thing I remember is how much my hands hurt afterward, from clamping down so much to stop the bleeding. Story 4. Vertigo. I thought it was just people exaggerating motion sickness. Nope. A split second of my vision spinning was followed by the most intense nausea and a general sense of, never again, please. Story 5. I've taken fentanyl a few times now in relation to surgeries, and I don't know how that experience compares to whatever versions people are dealing with on the streets, but I was not prepared for how fully real the sense of checking out and not caring anymore is. You might think you know what to expect because most of us have been affected by alcohol and maybe other lesser drugs, so you try to picture more intense or weirder versions of that, but it's just something else. It felt like it completely rewired your brain, and it's also one of those things where it just felt like there was no fighting against it. There are people who have been drunk and don't like the feeling, and I feel like you can arrive at that because there's still enough you left in there to have an opinion about what's happening to you. With my experiences with fentanyl, though, I didn't feel like I had any say anymore, and I don't know how you object to that sensation. It instantly became the easiest thing in the world to imagine why people would turn to that to escape their problems. It's not even a high kind of high in the sense that it feels good. I didn't feel any kind of rush or pleasure, and physically speaking, it just made me foggy and gave me tunnel vision, but beyond that, it just made me feel like I did not care about anything at all. Nothing like any apathy or indifference I've ever experienced, nothing like being drunk and being aware of a situation that you then choose to disregard. It's like you literally don't have access to the part of your brain that's supposed to care. Like they administered it to me, and within a minute, they were performing procedures on me. They could have done anything. Story 6. Tooth pain. I remember hearing about people complain about it before it happened to me, and I just didn't get it. Like, how bad could that possibly hurt? Well, let me tell you, it's a bunch. Story 7. A breakup. Nothing can prepare you for how horrible it is going to feel because it is like the death of a future you had planned, and you are suddenly in the dark and lost about everything. Especially if it comes at an age where you were ready to settle down, and after the relationship went on for years. Story 8. Gout. People said it was bad, but I didn't realize you can go to bed 100% fine and wake up in pain 4 hours later, totally unable to walk. I'm talking about the kind of pain where a blanket is too painful to lay over your bare feet, or if your foot is exposed, the fan blowing air in your room is too much pain to handle. Most flare-ups are not that bad, but most people with gout have experienced that level of pain at some point. Story 9. Hawaii. I always thought it was a mainstream travel destination for Americans who were afraid to travel outside the country. I was so wrong. I did a work trip out there for a few weeks. I fell in love. The air, the water, the sand, all the same temperature as your body, it feels like it anyway, and the constant sunshine and perfect breeze. It started to rain at one point, but it was still sunny somehow, like Hawaii just refuses to not be amazing. Story 10. Restless leg syndrome. It is not painful, at least not to me. Feels like you desperately need to stretch, but when you do, there's no relief. You just still need to stretch. That is not a great explanation. It is very uncomfortable and annoying. After a few nights of not being able to sleep because of it, you will feel like you are going crazy. Story 11. A ton of different things, but the first thought was underestimating the pain of an infected abscess tooth. I have a decent pain tolerance, but during the course of like 2 hours, I went from no pain to quite literally the most full-body convulsing pain that is unique in how it feels. It's absolutely brutal. I understood the Castaway scene where he takes the ice skate to remove his own tooth now. If I had a viable setup to try, I would have done anything to stop it. And I only had to wait like 12 hours for the dentist. Story 12. The effect of loneliness. It destroys your mental health so easily. I can keep myself busy and go about my day, but the moment I get some free time alone with my thoughts, I break down in tears. It's hell. Story 13. Walking around as a member of the majority. I'm Asian and I grew up mostly in the rural American South. There weren't a lot of us. I was one of 2 Asian students in my middle school. Then I got stationed in Korea, and suddenly the billboards looked like me. Beautiful women were advertising cosmetics on the sides of buses that worked with my skin tone. Movie stars, pop groups. I was of above average height. Everywhere I looked, I was normal. I felt so welcomed and so at home before I could even attempt the language. Story 14. Reading fine print when you are almost 50. I thought people who moved small print on packages up and down while squinting their eyes had given in to the common belief about getting older. Nope. If it is smaller than 10-point font and on a package, I need a magnifying glass or my teenager to read it. Story 15. I used to think people were exaggerating about how powerful sleep deprivation could be until I experienced it firsthand. Once I went a few days without enough rest, I realized how it messes with your mood, focus, and overall well-being. It is definitely not something to take lightly. Story 16. Growing up without a father, I thought people were exaggerating about the impact of absent parental relationships. I didn't realize how deeply that absence would shape every future connection, every sense of self-worth, every understanding of masculinity and relationships. It's not just a missing person. It's a constant echo of uncertainty, a silent void that becomes a blueprint for how you understand belonging, trust, and your own potential. You don't just get over it. You constantly reconstruct yourself, learning patterns that were never modeled, filling spaces that were never filled. Until you live it, you can't understand how profound and pervasive that absence becomes. Story 17. Dealing with difficult children. Simply put, nobody has any idea how bad it can get until you are in public with a misbehaving child of your own. Oh, do this, do that, say this, say that. If only it were so easy. If you enjoy feeling like you have any semblance of control over your emotions, surroundings, temper, and general patience, do not have children. They will grind you down into dust and put on an unforgettable show for you in public. You are worn out, and it won't be a one-off either. Difficult children are difficult, no two ways about it. It's about trying to do your best no matter how many times you get overwhelmed in front of everyone at the supermarket. Story 18. I used to have hair that was halfway down my thighs. I'm 5 feet 10 inches tall. My hair type is thick and wavy, and it was so heavy that I could only wear it in a braid because it would just fall out of any kind of updo. I had headaches all the time, my scalp hurt constantly, and my neck was always incredibly stiff, but I assumed all of those symptoms were from stress. When I went to see a chiropractor for my neck pain, she quickly worked out that the weight of my hair was an issue. Word for word, she told me, "I don't think you understand the damage you're doing to your body by carrying this around all the time." I told her that hair can't be that heavy, and I thought she was making a bigger deal out of it than she needed to. A month or 2 later, I'd finally had enough of my hair getting in my way when I was trying to do stuff, and I got it cut to my shoulders. To no one's surprise but mine, all my pain immediately went away. I felt like a bobblehead for the next couple of weeks until I adjusted to not having my hair weigh me down. No more head pain, no more neck pain, and I won't let my hair grow that long again. Story 19. Shrooms. You think it'll just look cool, maybe, or be like watching some movie, but it's all-encompassing, beyond description, and potentially totally life-altering. I haven't tripped in a few years because my last one was so big. I met people I've lost, embodied in the world around me, explored my own psyche, had epiphanies and clarity like never before. It's unbelievable. Story 20. I'm 36, and I had shingles this year. It was so painful for about a week, the most pain I've ever been in, mainly because it was constant and couldn't really be relieved. It was 6 months ago, and now I have potentially permanent or chronic pain near my spine, like getting lightly scratched. All because I had chickenpox as a kid. Get vaccinated, kids. Story 21. people in the woods, while checking in on a family member and dedicated meth enthusiast, who kept mentioning and insisting that there were people in the woods, people who seemed to be stalking and harassing them in general. Like many prior claims, I figured it was just meth talking, suggesting they were likely mistaken, and they should probably take a nap. But then I stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. It was about 1 a.m. as I stood there in the dark, facing the tree line, when a red laser point emitting from the woods hit me right in my eye and floated on my face for a moment before I heard what sounded like the pop of a .22, and the laser disappeared. Meth or no, this person was right. There really were people in the woods. And my kin was indeed being harassed by real-life people in the woods. Note, I am willing to bet the perpetrators were fellow, possibly competing meth users acting out some ideas for whatever reason. Moral of the story? Meth is bad. Don't do it. Also, don't dismiss everything a drug user tells you as imaginary. Sometimes someone can be both high and right. Story 22. The way that men in leadership will quietly ignore women. I had never experienced it until I got into middle management. So disgusting and frustrating. Story 23. Testicular torsion. I have been hit in the beanbag plenty of times, but nothing prepared me for the intense, nauseating, whole-body radiating pain. All I could do was retch because of the pain. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Story 24. The death of a parent. I'm watching my mom painfully deteriorate from cancer. It's something you know to expect, but until you experience it, you can't know the extent of the emotions. Sadness, guilt, loneliness, incapability, and confusion. As we all have nuanced relationships with our parents, the process of maturing to a level of basically parenting my parent has really opened my heart to see her as a flawed person instead of a bad parent. Coming to terms with a strained relationship being the most I will ever have with her has allowed me to love her and accept her more now, and I am grateful for that. Seeing your parent as a shell of the person they once were is a hard mental image to erase, though. Story 25. Depression. I had a short bout of post-surgical depression. I could barely move. A cloud of darkness descended upon me. I have since decided that people who suffer from depression are the most courageous humans on the planet. Story 26. When someone tells you not to use this substance because you won't be able to quit it, and you believe that your self-control is strong, you may think you can easily quit. However, you might be proven wrong when you find yourself stuck in a situation where you just cannot leave that addiction. Story 27. How tired you are during the newborn stage. I was told it would be hard, and I was ready for it to be hard. But God, it was very hard. I was recovering from a bad emergency cesarean section too, so I was heavily medicated, constipated, and really exhausted. They don't just feed during the night. They soil themselves, then wet themselves the moment you have them changed, then make weird noises when they eat, then won't burp, then soil themselves or spit up again. You can go through 4 baby grows and 2 bedding sets a night. Vomit in your hair is usual. Then all again in 2 hours. My husband and I were swaying. We could actually fall asleep almost standing up, leaning against the sink. Story 28. Losing memories after heavy drinking. Like in The Hangover. I always thought people were exaggerating until it happened to me. It's scary as anything waking up somewhere without knowing how you got there. Then hearing stories about things you were doing all night that you have absolutely no recollection of. I'm just glad it happened before cell phone cameras were everywhere. Story 29. Back pain. I was young and didn't understand it when my dad or others complained about it. I didn't make too many comments, but I just didn't get it. Fast forward to my late 40s, and I did something somehow to cause a problem at my office job. I figured I would get home and take ibuprofen and a nap. I go to get up from my nap to pee, and bam, I got real back pain. I couldn't breathe, move, or hold myself upright. I kind of melted to the floor to lay there gasping for air and crying in pain. So yeah, you don't know until it happens to you. Story 30. Itchy eyes. When people with allergies complained of itchy eyes, I figured they were just itchy on the skin around the eye. It wasn't until I got COVID pink eye that I realized the eyeball itself could be itchy. Story 31. I understood the basic thing that having pain constantly would be pretty annoying, but having chronic pain in my back and joints is just debilitating. I cannot stand up for more than a minute because the pain will shoot through my head and make me dizzy. Anything I do, I have to consider if it is worth the pain. I have to mentally prepare to do even the most basic of tasks. Everything hurts, and my head decides to spin at random times. Any type of exercise or activity makes everything hurt, and my heart spikes to a minimum of 130 beats per minute from just walking. I have random days that it gets so bad that I just cannot move. I am constantly exhausted, and this pain and exhaustion make me so irritated I lash out at people over nothing. I am angry all the time. Mix this with chronic mental illness, and you get a ticking time bomb of anger issues that could be released by the littlest of things. I hate how much it shapes me and how pessimistic I became as a person. I am constantly overstimulated by it and cannot think straight for most of my days. On the few days that I don't have many problems, I just cry because I am so relieved and just know the next day I'll have to say goodbye to that relief. The best part to add to it, I am only 21 years old. I have no idea what is wrong with me because doctors just dismiss me as I am too young to have any problem. Too young to feel like this every single day for almost 5 years now. Nothing seems to help, so I'm just stuck. No doctor takes me seriously, so I'll have to live like this with just such bad quality of life until I somehow am old enough to have a problem. I feel frustrated with chronic pain and frustrated with the people that refuse to give me help.